All right, so I'm going to discuss antibody agglutination, and that is the real crux behind the death, the outcome of death, and cancer, disease, and chronic illness. It's also what's in your vaccines. It's also what's in your therapeutics. It's also being induced by the different antibiotics, the herbal remedies, the different prescription drugs, the different detoxes. And how you know that antibodies are destructive is because you wouldn't take an RH, an AB positive person and transfuse that blood into an O negative person, because that antigen that induces antibodies will shut those organs down. Okay? And so when somebody has too many white blood cells, too many T cells, they have to go and get fluids. I remember when I took some kind of antibiotic for a UTI a long time ago, I was in the hospital for a few days because I had too many white blood cells. I had too many T cells that were causing these rashes, and they did a count, and they're like, you have too many T cells. They were giving me not blood transfusion, but they were giving me fluids in my body to break up the antibody agglutination. So antibody agglutination is the reason behind the natural causes, death from natural causes. When you have so many antibodies coagulating in your blood and causing plaque and causing other issues, yes, you will die from a heart attack and a stroke. And this is why people get triple bypasses, quadruple bypasses, because they have too many white blood cells in their blood, as well as other fatty tissues and too much fatty tissues that are clogging up their arteries. Also, too, when you have so much IgA immunoglobulin antibodies that coagulate in your lungs from respiratory infections, that will also drown a person because they are building up so much and they're not releasing the excess that it then shuts off their air supply. So you can have antibodies shut off your blood supply, the antibody agglutination shut off your blood supply to your brain as well as to your heart. You can have antibodies shut down your kidneys. All of cancer, disease, and chronic illness, really, the underlying cause is, yes, the imbalances in your microbiome, but it's the amount of antibodies that agglutinate, okay? And when you have antibodies that agglutinate, that's what causes positive titer tests. When someone tests negative, it means they don't have as many antibodies agglutinating, so they're not infectious, they're not releasing any excess, like blowing their nose or having some kind of symptoms. So when they're telling you, oh, any kid that has symptoms out there in school or wherever, and you're supposed to be wearing a mask, right? They make you go home because they know as soon as a symptom happens, it's the antibodies, and they're, of course, they're gonna be like, it's the COVID, yeah, because that's the newest antibody, that's the newest virus, the newest entity on this earth right now. And so I don't know to what extent the psychological operations out of China, because I know that China is, they've definitely done some stuff to their own people and the psychological operations they had. And I know also too what's going on with the destruction, the planned destruction of our communities is very, very reminiscent of the Cultural Revolution. The destruction of the bourgeois and the rise of the proletariat, and then you're having a government then make everybody equal, but their freedoms are being suppressed and their ability to make money is going to be suppressed. And so the only money that you can make is whatever the government actually allocates to you. And so, you know, me now promoting the fact that antibodies is what causes destruction, it would be the complete antithesis of what you're seeing on TV. CNN, Fosse, Dr. Phil, Fox, all of these different holistic allopathic promoting antibodies. You think it's healing because you don't want to feel pain. And in reality, those antibodies is what just destroying you. I mean, look at your friends and family. They have all these different cognitive issues. They have imbalances in their biochemistry because these antibodies are causing them to misfiring in their hormones. Their hormone levels are like up and down. They're taking supplements because some of their hormones have been shut off by some of these monoclonal antibodies that have been programmed. And they're going to be in your vaccines. That's what's coming up, is these vaccines that are going to be circulated massively like in December, but they're already having at 30,000 with 80 different strategically placed sites in America That's 375 people in these 80 sites that are going to be passing along another strain of the COVID that is then either you, when you get the vaccine, you're going to get now these antibodies are going to cause destruction, but also someone who is shedding, mutating the virus. So we're going to see another pandemic. And those that have suffered, like you watched your friends suffer from the COVID with comorbidities, and you know some of you were hanging by a string and passed away when you were exposed to the COVID, but some of you are going to be exposed to the next wave of mutations from the vaccines as well as those that shed. Now it's going to be chipping away at those of you with other predispositions. And so you have to understand that antibodies are not your friend. Antibodies are not your friend. Antibodies is what exactly it is. It is anti your body. And antibody agglutination is what shuts down vital organs. The whole blood type transfusion, that right there is proof in itself that antibodies will destroy a body, especially when they coagulate rapidly. And so when you get a titer test, it shows that you are infectious if you test positive. And that's why when someone has been, they're HIV positive, but they don't have the AIDS virus, HIV positive says, okay, you have coagulation, but you're not communicable yet, or you are communicable, but you're not dying. When you actually have the AIDS virus, it means those antibodies agglutinate. If you look up agglutination, is when those antibodies from a virus, from those viral proteins, actually come together and they take over the body, and they do a search and destroy, or they destroy whatever it was programmed to destroy. And so that's why there's different types of viral diseases and cancers, because viruses, and this is where it gets into the theoretics about what viruses are actually. Viruses are actually like spirits or ghosts. They're data. They are an upgrade. They're evolution. Okay, so I'm scanning and spanning all the different contexts out there, the politics, religion, and science. And viruses are just data. They're not alive. They need a host. Okay, and so these viruses also upgrade different parts of your systems, your body. That's why there is human DNA in the vaccines, because a virus needs a host. The monoclonal antibodies are from the DNA, and that's what's put in the virus to then make you adapt to the new environment, because the viral proteins, the antibodies that you get in a vaccine would be no different than you catching somebody's spittle when you're talking to them in a crowded room. Okay, that's how antibodies need to be understood. Is no different than being next to people who have been exposed to a virus that are shedding. Okay, so viruses are just upgrades to different parts of your body. You can have the different cancers like breast cancer, ovarian cancer, lung cancer, brain cancer. Those are all the viruses that have tried to upgrade the body, and those antibodies and the proteins have then caused misfiring, and then also you're not regenerating at the micro level faster than those antibodies are multiplying. And that's why they do this chemotherapy, to stop the multiplication of the antibodies, and then causing destruction and misfiring and anomalies to the proteins, to the cells, the evolution. And then this is why then people who get chemotherapy and have cancer, they look like a walking corpse. Okay, and it's like being in a concentration camp when you're getting chemotherapy, cannabis, anything that's a therapeutic that has to do with inducing antibodies. Antibodies are like the devil. They are the demons. When you're doing the jelly juice, you're releasing the demons, to speak in a religious way. Yes. So that's why the doctors, and that's why the mainstream media attack me, because I'm completely promoting the antithesis of what their intentions are. You're like, how can they, why would their intention be to kill us and hurt us and all this other stuff? And, it's the depopulation agenda. The world is not what you think. The fact that you keep coming back to them, giving them your money, your insurance premiums, all of your children and grandchildren. It's lucrative, and then you all are buying into it hook, line, and sinker, and then you keep going back to them as much as you have more cancer places, whatever, every single time you get chemotherapy, and you still keep going back to them. And you're just like, some people have, I don't know. It's sobering thought of what we're dealing with, but I'm becoming more clear on what it is that we're dealing with as far as antibodies and the psychological operations around them and the doctors. And it's not fun to know this information, because yeah, the world isn't what you think. My parents weren't what I thought. Okay? There are people out there that I thought were great and they're not. Okay? That's a hard pill to swallow. But the indicators were all there. I just chose to ignore them. Like most of you. The indicators are there, but you choose to ignore them because it doesn't fit into your preconceived fantasy, what you think the world is. That's the hardest thing, is penetrating all of your brainwashing. When you see how people treat you, if that should tell you what they think of you. Don't get into this whole fantasy that someone likes you, but they say nothing to you. But that's exactly what the world is like. They're like, oh yeah, my doctor loves me, the government loves me, but damn, the economy sucks, my bills are not getting paid, I have cancer disease and chronic illness, and they're supposed to be the ones to look out for me, but yet you still love them anyways. You still vote for them, whoever they are, Biden or Trump. Biden's been there for 47 freaking years. Trump's been around for a long ass time promoting hydroxychloroquine and all that stuff and playing whatever games he's playing, and you still don't see the indicators. Okay? And so react to how people actually treat you. If they don't call you, if they don't talk to you, whether on Facebook or anything else, that's what they think of you. Okay? That's just, deal with it as it is. Know your place, and then take care of yourself. But don't live in this fantasy world. Well, how can I tell that? Y'all live in a fantasy world that your government and, the doctors are out for your benefit, and they're not. No different than when someone doesn't call you on the phone or check on you or say, hey, how are you doing? Or give you a phone call, because I can't stand private message. I really can't. A phone call is great. I don't like phone calls every day, but every once in a while, a phone call to say, hey, how you doing? Let's catch up. That goes a long way than this fucking text bullshit. Okay? And so some of you are only about texting and that's it. Well, then that's your world that you live in. It's all about, shining on something that doesn't really exist. And so the art of communication, like talking to people personally, has gone to the wayside. But that's the world that we live in as far as the internet, as far as social media. People live in a fantasy world. And it's very easy on social media to live in a fantasy world. But reality is what you experience in your world in body, mind, and spirit. Reality is when someone cares about you, they would give you a phone call. If they don't give a shit about you, they won't call you. They won't even want to talk to you. That's how you know reality. That's what reality is do you see the indicators of how your government treats you, how your doctor treats you? They keep taking your money and you keep deteriorating. And then you end up in palliative care going like, oh, I still love the doctors. And you're in palliative care with freaking cancer disease and chronic illness and you're dying looking like a zombie. How is that taking care of you? But that's the thing. People live in a fantasy world. And I can't stand that fantasy world. I can't stand fake fantasy bullshit. I can't stand it. I see right through it. And I don't want anything to do with it. Okay? But I understand that, how the world can be. And not everybody wants to get on the phone and talk. Sometimes you have other ways that you have connections, and I get that too. There are different ways of people relating. And so, relationships and reality that's something that is a constant dance. And it's difficult to know what the truth or what the reality is out there when you're dealing with so many different people with predispositions. It's very difficult to know. And so you just find a happy medium. It's difficult being a Jilly Juice girl. It really is, because I deal with people in my world that kind of know what I'm doing. They don't really get it. And so it's hard for me to just be like, okay, pretend nothing exists, pretend like we're not going down a fucking horrible world track, whatever. But how do you act normal? How do you act like nothing is wrong? It's like you have to be a good actor. When the world's burning up and they're just walking as if there's no fire. It's like their bedroom is on fire, but they're going to the bathroom pretending it doesn't exist. That's kind of what I deal with in my world. And it's difficult to deal with that. But it is what it is. I wish people would acknowledge that, yes, there's something going on. But people don't even want to acknowledge there's something going on. And so when something finally does happen, they're going to be shocked. So, what I try to do is I try to just kind of get you guys conditioned to see it and to look for the reality indicators. And so when the shit does hit the fan, like we've been saying for many years in the conspiracy world, when the fall of society, well, you're seeing the fall of society right now. Hey, Patricia, you're seeing the fall of society right now. Just look at Oakland, look at San Francisco, look at LA, look at New York. That's the fall of New York. That's the fall of society. Parts of Cleveland, the shootings. I mean, come on. Is there any more indicators of the fall of society than what you're seeing today? Or is it like, oh no, our president's going to save us. Trump is going to save us. Q is going to save us. Jesus is going to save us. So yes, it's very difficult for me to relate to people in my world. Very difficult. So the less I deal with too many people that are asleep, the happier I am, because I can't pretend. But there are certain things I understand. People that have milestones that are going on. There's weddings going on, and I get it. You got to do your wedding. You got to have that cemented. You got to have, your family unit really, acknowledged. And I get that, and I'm fine. But I know that it's not going to be the same world that they came from. When people are getting married in 2020, they came from a world where it was so innocent, so to speak, right? And now they're entering into this world where, holy crap, what the hell is going on? And I'm just like, oh God, I feel bad for them because they don't see what the deal is, but maybe they do and they want to ignore it. I don't know. But yeah, so if it's hard for me to deal with people in my world where I can really barely hang out with too many people that are completely fucking asleep, then I can only imagine what it's like for those that are coming across my business page going like, how the hell is she demonizing antibodies? Well, because antibodies are antibody. They destroy you. And that is the root cause of it all, is the antibodies is what is part of the destruction of humanity, what also is promoting and contributing to the sexual predators and sexual abuse, of which then creates all of the diversity in our society. And so, when death is an ultimate outcome, it won't matter how diverse the society is. That's what you've been taught, is that diversity is great and death is expected. And so when death is expected, then it won't matter how diverse the society is. It won't matter how deviant the people in your community are, because death is the outcome. Imagine if they promote life indefinitely, then all of those anomalies and the deviancies would actually fall away. And you would have a very normal, non-hormonal population that is not going to be extreme in any which way. But that's not the world that we live in right now. We are run by freaking maniacs, okay? Who love to play mad scientists and experiment on the population. So that's the reality, and your kids are going to be, part of all of that when they go to public school or when they start fomenting more upticks of the virus. Okay, and then now you have quarantine, lockdown, and now you're seeing what's going on in Melbourne or Australia and Victoria, Australia, the police state. I mean, and we are also asking for the police state because of the whole thing with the riots and BLM and Antifa. And those paid actors to go and rabble rouse, the agent provocateurs. And so when somebody doesn't comply to the police, people are cheering. They're like, okay, they deserve to get killed. Well, imagine turning the tables and now it's a major left-wing Biden as your president who is now wanting to take your guns. I'm not saying that's going to happen, but let's say that does happen. And then someone tries to do something. Thanks, Patricia. And then someone wants to challenge the current politics of the day, and then they get shot by the police. And then guess what? The left is going to be like, yeah, you should have complied with the police. You should have done this. You should have done that. And so be careful of what it is you're subscribing to when it comes to taking a side. Because very easily the tables can be turned, and now instead of having Trump in the White House, now you have Biden and Kamala, who is then going to obviously realize your worst fears. And then they're going to have a very militarized police force that works for Kamala and Biden. And now you're like, all the people that were for Trump and like the federalizing, the militarizing of the police force going in, now we're going to have the other side go out there and do whatever. And I'm telling you, no matter what, you're not going to win in this for and against type of dichotomy of our politics. You really have to understand what antibodies do to you. You have to understand jelly juice, release the excess, clear your gut, clear your body, mind, and spirit. Talk about your healing process so that way other people can see that it's not as difficult as people make it out to be. You know, you all have the capacity to speak about jelly juice. Why you don't, I don't know. But some of you may not be doing the J juice, so there's nothing for you to talk about, right? And I get that too. But if you really want to change the world, you got to change your own biochemistry, okay? You have to change your biochemistry. That's what I've been doing every single day, is I'm talking about the indicators. I'm talking about my own biochemistry. I'm trying to now articulate it in another book. I re-released my other book, this book, because you guys need to know the extreme side of what I was talking about as far as the conspiracies. That is now I still buy into. Remember, I had to take a middle ground because I went through my own evolution. Okay? So this is when I was on a Dr. Phil, and then this is my mentality back then when I was responding to my government, okay? And so I have a lot of bibliography and substantiation to some of the claims that I've made. And then as far as the diversity in our population and all that, yeah, there is a genome database that has all the genetically modified proteins that have specific intentions as far as how they program your reproductive system, as well as your proclivities and your desires. And yeah, some people do feel confused, okay? And so that genomic database does exist. It's in plain sight, but they say they use it for cancer research and whatever research, but it's also to program people. And those are the proteins that go into your drugs as well as into your vaccines. And then you wonder why we have such a diverse population. Oh, because they're messing with your biochemistry. They're messing with your innate and your adaptive immune system. And so the jelly juice breaks up the antibody agglutination and it reprograms your body back to what it was originally intended. And then you're not so hormonal. You're not so sexual. You're not so aggressive. You're not so extreme. You don't want to go and hurt somebody or destroy somebody. You're like taking care of you and yours. And then you're also telling people that, wow, you know, salt is not deadly. Wow, salt's an energizing force. Wow, salt backed by the right constituents will regenerate cells. Okay? And that, yeah, potential indefinite life is possible if you regenerate at the micro level on a continuous basis, despite the aggressive environment. Because you're going to have a billion little viruses that have been mutated by the vaccines as well as hitting the different bodies with predispositions, and you're going to have to adapt to the environment. Okay? And so, you know, until the environment calms down and we have more people healthy, less people unhealthy, we're going to be having to adapt to so many different new viruses out there. And it's going to be crazy. So they've already had indicators on CNN about November. Oh, we're looking at another uptick, another pandemic in November. They're already setting the stage. They're already saying the Midwest and Iowa is a hot spot. With Trump not wearing a mask, and they're going to see Trump not wearing a mask, which, okay, that's great that he's making a political point, but that also gives the left, or gives the overall architects of our society, a reason to blame for the new pandemic. So when the vaccines get rolled out, they already have 30,000 people who are doing the phase 3 trials, and then they will then cause another upsurge in the infection rate because of mutations. And then you have Trump and anyone else saying, okay, I'm not going to wear a mask, which I understand. I don't want to wear a mask either, but it's not because, because there's no reason, there's no point in it. But no matter what, they're going to blame those that are going to ball games, those that are not wearing masks, those are unvaccinated, those that are just completely butting the system. They're going to blame those people. And so no matter what you do to make any political statement, it's going to be mischaracterized. Okay? This is what I've been teaching since I've been started dating. Now they can see it's okay. All right, no worries, Patricia. But that's the thing, is that no matter what, there's going to be another second wave. And it's not going to be manufactured. It's going to be a true second wave, because the vaccines are going to do a number on people's body, minds, and spirit, and they're shedding. And then they will have the blame game already figured out. They're already laying the groundwork. Okay, they're already saying that if you have any kind of symptom in school right now, before the HR 6666 gets passed, that you got to stay home now for 14 days. Any symptoms, you could have a stomach ache, you could have a sniffle, you could have an allergy, you could have whatever, you can sneeze, and they're going to send you home. Okay? So it's like the kid can't even want to sneeze or cough or do anything that's going to trigger the teacher and the administration to send them home for 14 days. And so a mom is trying to work. She's a single mom, or it's a 2-income household and they can't survive without 2 incomes. Now the kid has to be at home either by themselves on a computer at the disposal of the elements and pedophiles that are out there. And then or the mother has to come home and take a cut and pay, or potentially get fired because she has to be home for 14 days to take care of her kid. Okay? That's what we're facing right now, is the fact that these kids cannot, and kids, oh my God, they're going to have sniffles. And when the vaccine gets rolled out, they're going to have reactions to it. New antibodies. Guess what? That's going to be a license for the state to come in and quarantine. That's what y'all don't realize. The contact tracers and the justification for quarantine, whether separately or in public facilities or commercial facilities, or not commercial, but federal facilities, county facilities, whatever. I'm telling you guys, we are entering into some really dark times. And so, those that are strong are doing the J juice, and you have kids, but they have to be in public school. Well, yeah, your kids are going to be, they may have to get quarantined. The state may have to do whatever they got to do if you're part of that system. And then you will keep giving yourself and your kids jelly juice, release the excess. And if they have to be quarantined and they're going to be taking therapeutics, because most likely they're going to be forced vaccinated at some point, most likely they're going to have to take therapeutics. And then you still keep giving them the J juice to again rebuild. And it's going to be a constant fucking battle for those that are on J juice. And you have kids that are in the system. Okay? And then also, if you have friends and family that submit to a contact tracers, test, and then they all get tested positive, and then they go and contact you, and they want to test you, and let's say you say yes or no, I don't know, and then yes, and the kid's going through their healing process with the JJs because they have predispositions, of course, then they're like, well, did they get a vaccine? Will they give a vaccine? Well, they're still having issues. Well, here's the therapeutics. I mean, it's going to be a battle. When you have kids in this society, you're going to be battling for their life. For those of you that are doing the JJs. Those of you who are not doing the JJs, you'll just give your kids to the state. They'll get the vaccines, the therapeutics, and they'll be taken down notch by notch by notch. And you hope they survive their childhood. But I'm telling you, the way the system is going, the more they promote the antibodies, the more aggressive the antibodies are in the vaccines, the more your children are not going to be able to really handle the aggressive environment. Or if they do, they're going to be taken down notch by notch by notch, which then I don't know what kind of child's going to come out of this. But those of you on the J juice, it's going to be a battle, and you have to be strong enough for this battle, because it's going to be a battle, especially if you're sending your kids to public school. Those of you that homeschool your kids, you have more control over your situation, especially if you don't mix in with those that submit to COVID-19 testing, especially when the contact tracers are going to be like rabid dogs looking for anyone that tests positive so they can get into your network. But those of you that are doing the JJUS and sending your kids to public school, yes, they're going to be giving them the vaccines and the therapeutics, and then you have to fight against that. So it's going to be a constant uphill battle until your kid is old enough to be on their own, and they've gotten all over their predispositions and the new ones from the new vaccines. Okay? So I'm already kind of seeing the writing on the wall. Some of you don't even want to look at it, and I understand it. It's too overwhelming. But I see the reality of it all, and it's not a pretty reality. It kind of makes my heart heavy, knowing what y'all have to go through. But anyways, all right. You guys take care. I'm going to drink my coffee. I got changes in my world. My husband's home now every night. He's got a new job, so that's really awesome. And so, I'm happy for him. And yeah. And so that's it. That's all I got to say. You guys take care. Bye.